Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan was launched to support the Indian economy in fighting against COVID-19. But the structural reforms in society can only be witnessed when skill development becomes the backbone of this ambitious program. In our next panel discussion, industry experts will share their point of view on skilling, reskilling, and upskilling Skill India for Atmanirbhar Bharat. I would like to invite Mohammed Ujaley, Senior Assistant Editor, ET Government, to moderate the discussion.
Hello and welcome to this special panel discussion focused on skilling, reskilling, and upskilling. Skill India for Atmanirbhar Bharat, where we are going to talk about building resilient higher and technical education to deliver a digital ecosystem which can upbring our skill development across the country. To lead the discussion, today I'm joined by Ms. Manisha Verma, Principal Secretary, Skill Development, Employment and Entrepreneurship with Government of Maharashtra, Mr. Chokha Garg, Secretary, Department of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship, Government of Goa, Mr. Arunkumar Pillai, Chief Strategy Officer with National Skill Development Corporation. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Let me begin with Ms. Manisha Verma. Ma'am, I would like to understand from you, given the fact that you work on a skill development a lot, how your department is working on skill education and training, and what are the ways that you have adopted for industry collaboration within the state?
So thank you, Mohammed, for having me over for this panel discussion. I'll just give you a sense of how our department functions. Our department, broadly, you can say, has three kinds of verticals. One is the education side, where you can see the network of ITIs. We have around 958 ITIs, government and private, with an intake of 1.5 lakhs youth per year. And there we give them, skilling training in basic trades, almost 38 crafts that we have, which we are trying to focus on industry relevant skills. The other aspect is the skill training through different government of India and state programs that we are doing. And for that, we have both the GOI funds as well as the state funds. We also have a very unique state level skill development board. So apart from the sector skill councils that you have at the level of Government of India, we are actually having a state board for our own courses and accreditation. Apart from that, we also have a state skill development society as well as an innovation society. So this is roughly the broad spectrum through multiple verticals that we are both in the space of skill education, skill training, and then innovations for startups. And the mechanisms, your second part of your question, that how are we trying to make our youth more employable and giving them industry relevant skills. We have multiple mechanisms for this. One, we actually have adopted in the state as a policy, dual system of training, which we have learned from, Germany is the country that spearheaded this, in which in many of our ITIs, we are doing the theoretical education in ITIs, but we are having actually the practicals in the industry work. So that is one mechanism. The second is apprenticeships. We are actually having now both the national, not only the Government of India national scheme, but we have our own state level scheme. And we have almost 11,000 establishments which are registered on our portal with 1 lakh seats. So this will lead to better employment because they are going to work in the workplaces and in the organizations and industry. And then they can be placed and there would be better retention. The third is that even in the management of our ITI, which are our field institutions to give skill training, we are having industry partnerships. Right. And industries in the local area are key stakeholders and they are free to manage and introduce new courses along with our regular government staff. And then there is another thing that Maharashtra has been doing as a best practice, it is recognized nationally, is to leverage CSR funds and to have partnerships with industry. So we have training centers which are set up by certain leading industry houses on our own ITI campuses. We have Sandvik doing machine shop on ITI on, we have Maruti Suzuki, Honda Motors, Mahindra and Mahindra, Siemens, Samsung, Bosch, Dassault. Many of these top industries are actually have created training centers, state-of-the-art training centers on our ITI campuses.
Right.
And then we have also done special MOUs with many of the industry houses. So these are some of the ways that we are actually doing industry relevant trainings.
Mr. Garg, what we have realized that during the pandemic, especially, it was a huge challenge to continue with the learning that the education institutes were providing, be it the traditional university or colleges or a skill development center. So in the beginning, I would like to understand with you what kind of challenge did you face, and how do you mitigated the challenge, and how did you ensure the continuity of learning in your state?
As far as you know, because of pandemic, all the educational institutions and all the other functions wherever people were gathering, they were all closed down as per the orders of the government. The same was with our ITIs also in Goa. But to continue the studies, all the students were connected online, and we started giving them all the theory classes online. This is how we made sure that no time is wasted as far as the students in our ITIs are concerned.
Okay, I'll come back to you again, Mr. Garg, and I'll go to Mr. Pillai. Mr. Pillai, as Mr. Garg was mentioning about as to how in the ITIs, actually, he ensured the continuity of learning despite the fact that there was a huge challenge during the pandemic, but digital platform he used. And we noticed across various government department that whatever the government department had some level of integrated solution, they were able to actually go online quite easily. Would you like to share, based on your experience, as to how did you look at the skilling part within pandemic, the kind of impact did you witness, and some of the innovative method which were used, especially under the leadership of National Skill Development Corporation?
Yeah, thank you, Mohammed. So this was a difficult period, as Mr. Garg spoke about. Almost all our skill training institutions, all the vocational training institutions, both in ITIs, colleges, all of them were actually, by the government orders, they were actually shut down. So therefore, the first few months of the pandemic was, as Mr. Garg said rightly, it was very difficult. But subsequently, we did begin offering these training programs through a digital platforms, which we have. Similarly, we worked through a lot of training partners. So they themselves had a lot of their own digital platforms through which skilling was offered. But the problem with vocational education is that, or specifically when it comes to training in skill developments and ITIs, is you need a lot of lot of lab-based training. You know, so for a sector like retail, for a sector like banking, financial, IT, etc., it is very easy. It was quite easy to transition it to a digital model at that point in time. But when it came to something like a training for an electrician program or a training for a welding program, etc., obviously it could not be done. So much of the training was delivered, theory training was delivered through the platforms. And when I say theory training, many a times it's about the trainer coming online. The same trainer who was delivering in the classroom, he came onto the digital platform and he addressed the class, a set of students who then. But what we did during this time period, we used this time phase to actually do a lot of pilots. We realized that this could be the way forward, in the sense going forward, digital could be a significant component of our training. So we did pilots across various four sectors and tried to see. We found that it is not easy. First of all, completion rates were challenged. Student interest was a challenge. Trainer was unable to engage with the students in a big way. Moreover, some of the students did not have I mean, the segments we address, many of them do not have the capability to pay for the data charges, So therefore, though that was a challenge. So in a sense, this period gave us a picture of what could be the challenges of launching a digital program. And we have in fact collated those findings. And actually, in fact, when we are launching a new program this year, we want to launch it in a blended format. And although we have not got the right model in terms of how much of it should be classroom, how much of it is to be digital, how much a lab, but we have got some pictures. So hopefully we'll be able to build on that. So I would look at this period as a period of learning for us. But as the fact, towards the fact and the reduced batches, etc., we restarted the program. So typically 30 batch sizes got reduced to 15, etc. So in a sense, we have now picked up the learnings. Hopefully, when we relaunch the program, we will be integrating many of those learnings into a blended kind of format.
Right. Absolutely. I completely agree with you that pandemic was a completely a new experience, and a lot of people faced challenging, and there were a lot of learning. And one more thing that you mentioned, that hybrid is somewhere going to be the new normal, but the ratio nobody has been able to figure out. I mean, how much classes you want to have in the digital form, how much on the physical classes you would like to do. But in digital, in skilling part, as you mentioned, that the lab experience is really needed. Once again, I'll go to Manisha, ma'am. Ma'am, what we have learned that for skill development and for training, the role of innovation plays a very important role. And there, different states, central government, they are working quite hard, especially in terms of the promoting a startup culture within a state organization. I would like to understand from you, how do you look at the innovation and the kind of work that is being done within the state, especially on promoting the startups?
So I'm very happy to share that Maharashtra now under the Niti Aayog Innovation Index, we are the second in the country. And Maharashtra has made, large strides in this area of innovation and creating a vibrant and very positive ecosystem for startups. We do have a separate, as I told you earlier, we have created an organization under the department called Maharashtra State Innovation Society. So it gives some kind of organizational autonomy to function, and it has a governing board which is led by Dr. Mashalkar and many of the industry and top scientists. And we have, apart from senior government officers, we recently organized a startup week, which actually called for registrations saw entries of more than 2,800 startups from across the country. And we selected the top 100, which pitched before an independent jury of industry and experts. And then we selected 24. Now, this was the 4th edition of our Startup Week, in which we actually, to the winners, we actually give direct work orders if they are having any innovative solutions or products which may be relevant in the space of agriculture, health, infrastructure, clean energy, mobility, and relevant areas. So this is one unique thing that we are doing to give them a breakthrough and, a beginning to do their proof of concept and actually to test and pilot with the government itself. And then apart from that, through our Innovation Society, we have also created around 17 incubators. So we have a budgetary provision of giving 5 crores per incubation center. And 13 of them are now housed in public universities and institutions. We've also created a dedicated incubator in SNDT University for women. And these incubators give the startups, early startups, not only the working space, physical space, but also the technical know-how, industry connect, and mentoring that we do through the incubations. We also do some event like a grand challenge in which we source the problems that are there in governance by different departments, and we invite and do an event in which this challenge is posed before the startups, and we give them funding to find solutions. For our startups, we are also supporting them with financial assistance for their intellectual property right, for their filing of patents both domestic and global. Apart from that, we are also giving them funding for getting quality testing and certification of their products. So this is some of the very, very, like all dimensions, we are having a very holistic approach, and we have in fact, it is one of the few states that has a startup policy, and it was in 2018 that this was promulgated. We've had many success stories also in our various winners. I'll give you an example that recently we piloted for, booking through Navana startup. We've done a booking of COVID vaccination slots for rural women through a WhatsApp chatbot.
Right.
And we piloted it in Gondia. We have Sagar Defense, who is now in marine surveillance, but actually we piloted a project successfully for lake cleaning in Mumbai. And similarly, we have some startups which have used blockchain technology successfully to identify forgery of COVID certificates or lift licenses and other, important documents. So there are a lot of examples of very successful startups which we recognized in our startup week, and later they have been picked by investors to scale up.
I'll go to Mr. Garg. Mr. Garg, how do you see the digitization in skill development? Because as Mr. Pillai said, a good combination of digital and physical possibly could, increase a different level of understanding within the student, given the fact that you take care of a lot of ITIs in the state, and ITIs are at the very beginning level of, skilling large set of students who have not been able to get into a regular colleges.
Let me tell one more challenge which we faced during that phase. The students who were coming from remote areas, there was connectivity issues also. So they were not able to connect from their homes to our classes. The second challenge was this lab-based experience and lab-based studies, which was not possible online mode. So naturally, physical, you can say, classes in the lab, that was more important, particularly for skill development type of studies. But the, you can say, learnings for us from this pandemic is we should be prepared to face the challenge of these type of disruptions by upgrading our connectivity issues, by making such platforms available to the students wherever they are, so that they can be connected and contacted whenever such need arises. So this will also give chance to our students to, you can say, engage in this area, how to make these platforms more, you can say, robust and more useful, particularly during these times.
Absolutely. Mr. Pillai, I'll come again to you. What Mr. Garg is saying, especially for a different set of students, for example, ITIs, where you need a lab-based experience for practically demonstrating a lot of skills and a lot of things. But there are some technology which is emerging. For example, AI, machine learning. I'm talking about the high-end level. Even in the beginning of AI or data science, there are a lot of things could be taught digitally. And we noticed that during the pandemic, a lot of people enroll for these classes, and there were a lot of traction in some of the platform which is offering these courses. And in these technology, especially AR, VR, AI, machine learning and all, there is a dearth of talent within the government system. So I would like to understand from you, how do you look at this high end of skilling within our skill force, and how actually we can utilize the digital platform for this?
Whether it is AI or data science or cybersecurity or even AR, VR, etc. There is shortage across the world. It is not only in India. I mean, if you look at the entire, I mean, I can speak from experience in Japan, whether it's Finland, whether Sweden or Germany. We have so many requests for people, IT engineers with the same skill sets. So this shortage is something across the world where so therefore it is also a challenge and it's also an opportunity. Having said that, I think many countries have started doing a lot of efforts in this direction. I think one of the key countries which we should be looking at is Singapore, which puts so much of emphasis on training people. In fact, the common citizen in these kind of skills, so they have something called Skills Future Singapore, etc., where they do it. We have also launched what is called as the NASSCOM Future Skills Platform. This is NASSCOM SSC's Future Skills Platform. So over the period, close to around 3.8 lakh people, across companies and even students have got trained on this platform in these new skills, So therefore, we are realizing the importance of training people on these skills. Moreover, if you see, since you mentioned new technologies, one of the biggest, in terms of funding, I see in the startup arena is the drone technologies.
Right.
So many students, so many startups are coming in the drone area, but the big challenge these startups face is the lack of skilled manpower. People are not available who can do drone assembly, who can do drone testing, etc. So therefore, there's a whole range of skill sets, whole range of this new technology, emerging technologies, which we need to work on. So what we do, as a government or as NSDC, what we are working on is, of course, using this digital platform, which I just spoke of. But also we are tying up with various, for example, we have a partnership with Finland. Finland, because they are quite good. Finland, Estonia are some of the countries which are far ahead in these technologies, where they talk about robotics for rural.
Right.
So those kind of programs we are talking of. So I think it's a case of doing more of what we are doing currently, and also engaging more and more with the startup ecosystem, because they are the ones who know that where the requirements, where the skill sets are required.
Right.
But having said that, there's a lot of work to do in this space.
Absolutely. Ms. Manisha Verma, I'll come to you again. As other speakers were mentioning about the empowerment, the kind of work they have done during pandemic, and why skill is really important for job creation. But one fundamental problem we also faced during the pandemic and otherwise also, when in terms of women empowerment, there are a lot of work needs to be done. And I believe there are something which is being done within the state of Maharashtra. So I would like to understand from you, how do you look at the women in technology, women empowerment in gender, and the kind of work that your organization is doing on that?
So I'd like to appreciate the magnitude of this problem. As you know, Mohammed, India has the widest gender gap in internet usage. It begins right there in the Asia Pacific. This gap is almost 40.4%. And even Pakistan, whom we generally compare, has a lower gender gap than us. Indonesia has only 11%. China is at 2.3%, while we are at 40.4%. And even within this, if you see, there is a rural-urban divide.
Right.
That rural women will have less access to internet usage. And within the households, again, the females, in terms of usage or availability of personal smartphone, will be, have lesser access compared to their male counterparts. So it is at multiple levels that this gender divide gets magnified and amplified. And you must have read that there was close to 15.8 crore girls who were at the risk of dropout during the COVID. Women also suffered because they face exclusion. They are not able to, even RSHGs, self-help groups and micro entrepreneurs, small, women who do small trading, they are not able, because of this gender divide, to really access benefits of e-commerce. They're not able to access benefits of telemedicine, social security benefits, as governments are increasingly becoming, more and more using technology platforms. Unless we bridge this gap, women will tend to be behind. And therefore, Government of India, the center and the state both have been talking about bridging this gender divide. Recently, the National Education Policy talks about vocationalization of education and actually creating special courses for women. There's also schemes like PMKY, which is talking about digital courses. When I was in tribal, we tried to partner with Girls Who Code, which is a global organization, and we did training of ashram school girls in coding. Similarly, I tried to have a batch of Super 50 to train for NEET and ITIs, where 50% of the selected girls were, were tribal girls from very, very marginalized communities. Now in ITIs, in the Department of Skill Education, again, we are trying to focus on increasing the enrollment of girls in our ITIs, because that will be the base for technical education. We are doing it through School Connect programs. Recently, we partnered and did a MOU with UN Women and introducing a program called Flight in select ITIs for ITI courses. We've also created, as I mentioned earlier, a special incubator for women in Women's University, SNDT in Mumbai, so that women entrepreneurs can be encouraged. And we have several success stories in Maharashtra. You have that co-founder of Impact Guru, Khushbu Jain, who has created a tech solution for crowdfunding. We have some other startups by women entrepreneurs, Baby Chakra, Saral Designs, and others, who are inspiring the next gen women entrepreneurs. We've also started to, kind of give models and, pep talks and motivational talks through Spurti series of talks,
Right.
where we will be calling women entrepreneurs and leaders to talk to girls in ITIs and to our field officials and to women in general entrepreneurs to get motivated about adopting technical field as well as become entrepreneurs, because the both are quite interrelated. And in India, you will be surprised to know, I was going through that All India survey of higher education. Actually, our STEM grads, women who graduate in STEM courses, which is science, technology, engineering, and medicine, actually we have more than, in absolute numbers, more STEM graduates, women, compared to US, UK, France. But only 14% of the women STEM grads actually take to careers in the technology field. And therefore, we have to also look at the ecosystem of are we creating conducive environment for women scientists, women who adopt, career related to science and technology. The Department of DST is also giving a lot of funds to set up AI labs in women universities, creating fellowships for women to do doctorates in these machine learning and AI and other advanced technologies. But we need to understand that this channel has to be built on strong foundations. You cannot, first you have to encourage technical education, IT skills at the school level, at the ITIs level, and then take it to the next level of higher education.
Mr. Garg, we also noticed that a lot of skill development department and entrepreneurship department, they are well aligned with the industry, because the kind of training and skills that you provide, ultimately it's aimed at creating job and polishing the skills of the citizen so that they could become employable. Would you like to share anything on the alliances and some of the work that you are doing to promote jobs within the state?
Yes. You see, as far as Goa is concerned, we are totally engaged with the industry in Goa. And all our institutes, all the ITIs, we have institute management committees where the chairperson is from the industry. So whatsoever is the requirement of the industry, we do make changes in our syllabus. We are changing the trades also. Whatever is the requirement of the industry, now we are going to start, and we have already started only those trades where there is placement for the students. Then we are also going for dual mode of training, where they will be practical skilling will be done in the industry and theory will be in our ITIs. So already we are engaging ourselves with industry, and it is demand based. Now the courses We are changing from last 2-3 years. We are changing the trades also. So whatsoever is the in demand in the industry, we are bringing those new trades into it. Now you see in Goa, a new airport is coming, Mopa Airport.
Right.
So we are having a skill development center which will be catering to the needs of the airport requirements. We will be having an aviation skill development center which is being set up by the concessionaire who will be running that airport. So all these logistics, all other high lift truck operator, forklift operator, airside operations, cargo assistance, all those courses will be offered in that skill development center.
Right.
So that immediately placement is there.
Right.
So
Right.
that we are taking care of as far as our state is concerned.
Absolutely, absolutely. Mr. Pillai, it will be my last question to you. As Mr. Garg said that government department which is running the skill development courses, the ultimate goal is to polish the skills of citizen and make them employable. And we see a lot of short-term alignment happening. For example, Mr. Garg gave the example of an airport coming up in a state, and then the resources being mobilized in terms of the training and all. At NSDC, you also run a lot of programs of a different types. You support various sub-agencies to actually promote skilling and all. I would like to understand from you, is there a mechanism that we can develop wherein we can actually assess the kind of real impact it is having in terms of the creating jobs, or maybe polishing the skills of the people? If somebody is let's say, or a primary level, he goes to the secondary or tertiary, a kind of trajectorial growth for an employee.
Let me answer this with what has happened till now, and then of course what we could do going forward.
Right.
Obviously, all the programs which we talk are monitored well in the sense for outcomes. So if the word outcome is brought central to the whole discussion, then it becomes the program starts falling in place. So what's the outcome of skill development? Now, the outcome of skill development for a low income youth or a person who is a school dropout or who is just a school pass out is job. What is the outcome for a college graduate? It is, of course, again job, but also some of them can use it for higher learning, things like that. What's the outcome for somebody who is in the workplace? The outcome in that case could, of course, to be promotions or moving from picking up a next set of skills to change jobs and things like that. So wherever we look, if this outcome becomes a perspective, and if you look at what we are doing right now, I would say that if you see the national statistics, it would be around 30 to 35% is the number of people who actually get placed in. In fact, there are programs of two kinds. One is skill training programs, which is for fresh candidates, in which case the placement is about 50%. But when it comes to recognition of prior learning, somebody who is in the informal sector, we train them and then we help them move to a formal sector. Obviously, placement is not there, but the outcome is increased incomes. So the only way is to look at is how do we make this whole activity, right from mobilization to actual placement, much more efficient. So if 100 students actually enter a training center, how we can ensure that at least 70 students get a job or 70 students get higher income.
Right.
So as Mr. Garg said, the whole thing starts with demand linkage. The more and more centers you set up within industrial clusters, the more and more centers you set up within companies in the form of either through apprenticeship programs or various ways you engage with the industry, that is the way the first outcomes would be achieved. Secondly, it could be like when you talk of a district level kind of thing, what we are doing now is we do a planning at the district. There's something called a district skill plan now, which is coming up, where when the part of the plan is to actually to ensure that people who get trained, they actually get some kind of employment. It could be local employment, or it could be employment outside the particular district. The big challenge in skills is that many of the jobs are not in the place where people are. The people, like for example, many people are in Orissa who need skilling, but the jobs are in Coimbatore, Bangalore, and other parts of the country. So there is an element of migration. So therefore, we must be sure at the district level whether this candidate is willing to migrate. So it's not a question of jobs as such. It's a question of demand supply mismatch.
Right.
So there is demand elsewhere. So the whole idea is how do we match it? And ways to do it is what we are doing. One is at cluster level training, industrial cluster based training. district level planning, or using the technology, which is the platforms, where job matching happens. You can travel, you can be anywhere, and you can be matched to a job.
Right.
So therefore, we need to do a lot of planning, lot of design, and also use a lot of technology to actually to get this matching right.
Absolutely. So once again, I'll go to Miss Manisha Verma. Ma'am, as other speaker has also spoken about the experience they had during the pandemic. And what we realized that the pandemic was a bit new for everybody, and it really impacted the performance of different sector organization. And one of the biggest challenge has been to provide the continuity of learning, the continuity of evaluation. So since ITIs are providing uh, uh, learning experience, training, and skills which is needed also in a physical mode. So how did you ensure the learning experience? How did you ensure the continuity of learning during the pandemic?
So basically, yes, our ITIs, 500 odd ITIs are spread all across the state. They were in rural areas and in taluka places apart from district headquarters. But early on, our department acted quite fast, I would say, with a kind of vision. And we have in place a learning management information system where all teachers and students have been given a login ID. And there is some basic courses which are common across ITIs. There is already digital course content which is available. The instructors also went ahead to create a YouTube channel for vocational education, and our teachers themselves uploaded to over 750 videos on different crafts in that. To avoid this problem of searching for students as per the syllabus, ebooks were also created for 49 trades where things were segmented topic wise. Video links were provided so that students just don't get lost in the sea of internet content. And then there was some understanding with Zoom and Microsoft Teams to get free licenses for our instructors during the lockdown. In fact, we were also looking at the usage of the online platforms, and between March 20 and October 20, which was the first lockdown and which was the worst one, I mean, in terms of rigor of implementation, we actually had almost 4 lakh teaching, sessions conducted across ITIs in the state, the cumulative figure. The government of India also came up for ITIs with Bharat Skills app, which was for taking model tests, and there was support from GY also. Apart from that, various organizations, TCS and others, also provided ebooks and learning materials as an open source, which was shared. We also used that time well to do faculty development programs with NASCOM and IBM and others. But I would still say that despite all these efforts, we did have challenges. We had challenges of connectivity in remote areas. We also faced problem of accessibility because not every student had smartphone with sufficient data pack to do these to avail of these facilities. There was also some kind of preoccupation of children when they are at home out of institution with agriculture activities in rural areas.
Absolutely.
Because they are also, and rural economy, that was the only preoccupation that was allowed to continue even during lockdown. So we did have a fall of attendance, I would say that, apart from, despite all these efforts, I would say that the aggregate percentage of attendance was never more than 60% during the lockdown. So we do feel that we now, for any such challenge, we need to have very, very standardized digital courses prepared in-house and with simulations, because ITI is all about practical training and workshops. So it is not like a regular school learning program. So therefore, simulation and a digitized, standardized curriculum available to every student will be our topmost priority in future.
Absolutely. Ms. Verma, Mr. Garg, Mr. Pillai, thank you so much for sharing your views on Atmanirbhar Bharat and how Skill India can play an innovative role in it. You all spoke quite well as to how technology and digital is important for skill development, the way you mitigated the challenge of continuity of learning during the pandemic, and some of the things that we need to do in terms of creating jobs across different parts of the country. Thank you so much once again for being a wonderful panelist. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for sharing your knowledge based on your vast experience. Indeed, a very insightful session. Let's move ahead to the next session. Stay connected to your screens.